Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So before we get into today's video, I just wanted to say something real quick that please watch the whole video because there's important stuff in here, and also it really helps out the longer you watch. So let's get right into today's video. We'll see the precipitation type and rate. So first we're going to look at the precipitation, then we'll look at temperature, then we'll look at the Storm Prediction Center, and then we got some interesting hurricane stuff to get into. And then finally we will look at the Climate Prediction Center, and then that will conclude our video. So let's get straight into today's video. Starting off with the European model, you could see today we have some nice activity going on throughout the eastern United States. We have really this pattern of warmth that is allowing for all this thunderstorm activity to develop. We have this low pressure system here in the Central Plains that is kind of providing some. It's honestly not providing much in the way of precipitation because all the precipitation is going north of it here, as you can see. So it's providing some dryness for the Central Plains around Kansas. Then we have this high pressure system working here across the Rockies to keep things dry. And then we have these two high and low pressure systems out here in the desert Southwest. There is quite a bit of Pacific moisture that appears to be coming on shore. And we also have quite a bit of moisture going on in the Northeast. We have some precipitation going on there. We have a lot of activity in the Northeast. This will continue for quite some time. We'll see this pattern of, I guess you could kind of say, ridge riders going over in the western and central states and diving down into the eastern states. We'll see this pattern go on for quite some time as we move on through this. You can see we have some nice precipitation and activity moving through the northern plains. Excuse me. And we also have some in the Ohio Valley, some activity. Most of this is going to be on the north side of this low, as the low is moving counterclockwise, the air. And it's going to be on the north side of the low. So, as we can see, that low kind of keeps everything more northerly. It keeps it having to go over north of this and then go south. As you can see, it's kind of going to go south after it passes through the low. You see it goes down towards these areas here. And then we have a little line of storms here, I guess you can say. It's not really an organized line, but it's still something moving through the northern plains. We really see a lot of activity spike up here later in the night, later in the evening, as we go into the 15th. So this will be in the evening of the 14th. We really have some nice activity here out west. You can see along these mountains especially, we have some nice activity. Along the coast, it is remaining relatively dry there, even with this low pressure system that is taking place here. It is bringing some precipitation, but it's relatively drier. We do have a little bit of what appears to be some monsoon activity taking place, as we do have a little bit of this onshore flow here from the Pacific jet. We have a little bit of activity here along the mid-Atlantic that will be moving out. As we have this high pressure system, this might keep it a little bit drier during this period. As we move along, we see a belt of flow here driving these storms across the Great Lakes region into the Northeast and into the Ohio Valley. That's really the pattern we've been seeing for quite some time now. We do see this low pressure system strengthen right after it gets off the coast. Obviously nothing tropical going on there, just interesting. We do have a little bit of thunderstorm and shower activity going on across the lower Ohio Valley into the Tennessee valleys. We do see some activity firing off in the northern plains and the southern prairies of Canada there as we go towards the 19th. The Great Lakes is staying pretty active here. As we move through, we can see the mountainous west remains fairly active with quite a few showers and storms. Hopefully that will help out for the wildfire season, and also hopefully it just improves drought conditions out there. We do see a little bit of a cool down starting to head in, although as you probably already seen in the thumbnail of this video, there is going to be some warmth competing for this cold air down here. It's going to be competing with it. And we do see this low pressure system showing up here again, where we have this cold air funneling in behind it. We have this warm air funneling up ahead of it, and that's really what's going to surge this warmth into the east. We're going to see this warmth surge around the 23rd, although shouldn't be too bad though. Shouldn't be anything too intense. We continue to see this storm activity. We see it around this low pressure system, and it's really going along this way, and it's going to dive south, as we will see. Around the northwest, we have quite a bit of activity through British Columbia down into the Seattle area. We do have some offshore activity. In terms, here. Where was it? Let's see. I think it was around this area. Yeah, it was around here. We do have some offshore activity going on here. Let's move to around the 23rd. Yeah, that offshore activity really dies out, but as you can see, we continue to have these moving south along the jet stream here. And yeah, we really have a lot of lines of storms developing along and moving south, kind of into that pattern. Well, that was all for that. So let's look at the where is it? Let's just look at the 850 millibar wind. Let's just see what we can see from that. Or you know what? 700 millibars. Let's move to there. So you can see currently we have nice flow dipping down into the eastern United States. That'll probably keep some cooler conditions going on for these areas up here. And as we continue on, we can see the jet stream is there's kind of a ridge here and then a ridge here. So really the entire nation is under a ridge where we see this warmth surging in the eastern, central, and southwestern states. Although I do believe that as we get towards the fall time later in August, it will start to cool down. As you can see around the 19th, you really have this kind of dip in the jet stream moving into the southern and eastern states. As you can see, we have around the 21st, we really see this start to get in here, although we do still kind of have a little bit of a ridge over the south. So this is going to be interesting. The models have kind of been switching up in about this, where we have this trough especially that's going to bring some cold air into probably these regions, and we have a little bit of a dip here, but then we have this really big ridge across the central and eastern states, where we have warm air funneling up from the Gulf of Mexico, and the Pacific jet seems to be relatively weak during this time, although the Pacific jet is probably going to really strengthen. And look, we can see some really, really intense probably a good little cool down here for these areas. Probably going to experience some cooler weather around the 24th as we see that moving through. And then we really see this big ridge build out west, and then we have a trough building out in the east. So this is kind of the pattern we're left with. Obviously, this is just an idea at this point. Don't take it as a real forecast at this point because it's still pretty far out. Let's take a look at the GFS model. Not the CFS, the GFS. Let's take a look at the surface and precipitation type and rate. So we kind of see really the same thing as the Euro model. Although another interesting thing though is we do see some higher elevation snowfall here for Canada. Let's see. Not really seeing much difference so far. Probably as we get further out, there's going to be a little bit of difference. It does show that intense trough coming through here into the northeast. Not really seeing much in the way of that. Okay, so it really does show a really intense cool down. We even see some snowfall up here in the northeastern side of the frame. Whoops. Let's go back to that. Sorry, let's see. Yeah, we see some snowfall in the northeastern side of the frame, like the very top side. And it really does want to show this cold air coming down here into the northeast. Although overall we really have this kind of just generally zonal flow around this time. So yeah, it's probably gonna be near normal temperatures for a while. Towards the end of August and then towards the beginning of September, I suspect a cool down for the eastern United States and the central states. So hopefully that does happen. So the temperature stuff, let's look at the CFS, the temperature anomaly. Let's take a look at this, see what it says. Yeah, we do really see this ridge of heat building where we see the warmth surging. And then we see really relatively continued warmth for the western United States. It does cool down some, but it's relatively warm for the western states. Whoops. The central states especially, where we have this big pocket of big pocket of cold air that goes all the way into the Canadian prairies. It continues warming, and then as we get later on, we do see this cold shot really kicking in here. And this is what I was talking about. The end of August is going to start cooling down. It's what I suspect. Although this is simply just an idea of how it could go. So this is looking really similar to the one yesterday that we showed. So this is pretty interesting. We really have this cold air going down into the eastern United States all the way up from the Canadian prairies. And yeah, we really see this cold air. It's wow. Look at this. Obviously, this is really far out, so just take this lightly. This is not meant to be an actual forecast, obviously. This is just an idea of what could happen, but we really see this pushing down. We could experience some really cold air down here around the middle of September if this does happen. So that's a big if. Let's go back to the wind profiles here. Let's go back to 700 millibars, and I just wanted to show you guys something pretty interesting. We're going to go in a continental view, maybe. No. Would it be in a northern hemisphere? I don't know. Yeah. All right. So this is the looking from the top. This is, I think, yeah, this is Africa over here in Europe. And then I believe this looks like, yeah, this is Russia over here. So the Arctic Circle right now, you can see the Arctic circulation right now is relatively weak because we have a negative AO phase right now. And that Arctic air is really spilling out. It looks like it's more spilling out over the Pacific and northern Russia and northern Europe right now, like Norway, Sweden, those areas. And it appears as though as we move on, it's really, this circulation really is really weak right now. Um, Usually you would see the circulation about right here, and it would be like almost a perfect circle, basically. This is the Arctic circulation and the Arctic oscillation. We do kind of see a little bit of this moving east, although it's not going to dip too far to the east. And obviously, it's the August 19th. It's not going to be anything winter like for any of these areas. And we really see this Arctic circulation. It appears as though it's going to begin to really weaken as we head into September. And this is a good sign for snow lovers. If this continues through the winter, then we could see more cold and snow. It's usually what happens. And we see this really intense kind of Aleutian low almost. And we do have some circulation here, so it does appear as though it might strengthen a little bit, but overall, it's hard to tell that far out. So let's see if we can look at the CFS model, if it shows this. Okay, it does really show a weak Arctic circulation, but it kind of shows it. Let's see. Yeah, it really shows it weakening here around early September. This is a really weak Arctic circulation. And it shows, let's see, this is what it was talking about around the end of the run, where we saw that really cold air down into the east. This is that. So we have this Arctic air funneling down into the central United States. It really shows a disorganized Arctic circulation, which is generally for cooler air. And I know it's still summertime, but we're talking about we're almost into fall. Well, let's see, what is the date today? The date is August 11th. Yeah, we're only, was that 20 days away, 21 days away from the beginning of meteorological fall. So we only are 3 weeks away exactly from today. So it's not that far out. So I get why people are starting to talk about it in the long range. But the caution I will say to you is that if someone tells you that they are making an actual, I know I made a fall forecast, but if someone tells you that that is what is going to happen no matter what, that is not true. They just have an idea of what's going to happen. Kind of like my fall forecast was not an actual what's going to happen. It's just a possibility, obviously. So let's move on to the Storm Prediction Center. We have today an enhanced risk across portions of the Ohio Valley. 2% tornado threat, 30% wind threat. I believe that is hatched too. We have this 10% hail, 15% hail threat over the plains. It is level 1 hatched. Day 2 outlook. We will have a slight risk across southeastern Indiana, or southeastern Illinois and southern Indiana. We have across northwestern Nebraska and central Nebraska, even down into southern Nebraska, a slight risk of severe weather. We do have a 2% tornado threat across some of these areas in Illinois and Indiana. We have a 15% wind threat and a 15% hail threat here. Day 3 outlook, we just have a marginal risk, so nothing much in the way of that, but this is where things get interesting. We see a 70% chance of formation out here. It's moving towards the Caribbean. It's moving towards the East Coast. So let's go to that. Let's see. So I kind of have here satellite data. I believe this is the disturbance they're talking about. It does look indeed very organized. We can see here it's got a little bit of spin to it, counterclockwise rotation to it. Might get a little bit organized here. I wouldn't be surprised if they issued a potential tropical cyclone in the next few days here. One thing I will note though is there is a lot of or at least some amount of wind shear across these regions. So if it does end up moving over these areas, it might weaken a little bit, although I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a tropical, that's not really what I study, but what I'm more study like severe weather type of stuff and winter weather. But either way, it's going to be interesting. So let's see the Climate Prediction Center. We do see this eastern warmth surge, as I was speaking of, and then the northeast being a little bit cooler. The west is slightly cooler, although I do think they are going to be warmer, especially like the northwest. Let's move down. We do see below average precipitation for these regions, but we do see above average precipitation for a lot of these areas here. The Climate Prediction Center 8 to 14 day, this is the 19th through the 25th. You can see a lot of warmer conditions prevailing for pretty much all of the nation aside from the northern Great Lakes and the Northeast. So really what we've been seeing on the GFS model, where we get these little clipper lows where it brings a little bit of cold air here, but it doesn't really fully develop into a full-on eastern trough. Although this only goes to the 25th, and I believe shortly after that, this cold is going to start advancing into the eastern United States. So we'll have to see whenever they issue another one for like out to the 28th about. So see. We do see above average precipitation for the west and for the east, although below average for the very extreme southern areas. So thank you for watching this video. Check out EpicPen. They have some good stuff over here. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.